accepted, challenge accepted. Reality is always challenge accepted. Challenge accepted, challenge accepted. Reality is always challenge accepted.
Our next speaker is a passionate QA engineer and teacher with over 10 years of experience helping teams in Brazil and Europe build better frameworks and smarter testing strategies.
He's also the creator of Mestre QA YouTube channel, where he shares practical knowledge, career advice, and plenty of real talk with the community.
And one of his proudest achievements, growing up in a small town in Brazil, studying hard, and pushing himself all the way to Europe to become a QA engineer and teacher. That persistence is inspiring.
Please welcome the guy who forgot to say yes at his own wedding, but said big yes to QA challenge accepted, Bruno Figueiredo!
Hey, I understand you. I would like to continue drinking a beer. So, let's speak about complexity and look a little bit. This is my intention. And by the way, explain a bit to you. I won't provide any solution to you. I probably will provide a lot of questions. This is my goal here, to provoke you. So, who from you already is working with automation or has worked? Who? Good, good. By the way, I will answer the question and I will ask the questions, but let's go. Me too. And how long, think about that, how long usually you take to understand the projects? When I say understand the project, if, for example, you got hired for a company, then you need to provide the solution, to create new test cases, to, for example, if you are working with Selenium or with Playwright, how long you get the code and say, okay, I'm 100%, I have the 100% of the knowledge to continue building the solution. Have you stopped to thinking about that? Okay, think, then I will give my answer. And in this kind of context, how was the experience? And how was the experience to continue, it's failing? To continue a project instead of, in this case, to start a project from the scratch? I'm asking this to give you some context, because I had some issues and I was trying to investigate and try to find some solutions for some problems that I had or that I have been. Answering these questions. Usually, if I start, in this case, if I start on a new company that there are a lot of projects ongoing, usually I take, for example, 1 month, 2 months, depending on the case, maybe until 6 months to control, in this case, the project. But the problem, it's not because I'm bad or not because I don't want to build this solution, but because we had a lot of unnecessary complexity on the projects, on the solutions of automation. And because of that, we have a bad experience with software automation in general. And so, this is AI, okay? And you are seeing that I'm not good with AI because I'm a bit different. But it's just to refresh the idea that I'm here to provoke you, to put in your mind, to start to thinking a lot of things that I want to bring to you. And I will tell some histories that I had, and this is the idea, is to speak with you about complexity in testing automation. And, as I said, more questions than answers, unfortunately. So, let's speak about over-engineering test automation. We had a talk here about engineering, but it was not the opposite of that talk. It was on the same way, because the problem, it's not engineering, it's when some cases we had over-engineer, then I will speak about that. So, speaking about the problem of complexity in projects of test automation, I was trying to identify, and I found at least 3 issues. And these 3 issues are connected. Usually, it's lack of acknowledgement. When I say lack of knowledge, it's a huge bubble, I can say, because could be lack of acknowledgement in, for example, in code, could be lack of knowledge in the project that you are working from, could be lack of knowledge inclusive in process. For example, we are developing a solution from software automation, and we even had, for example, a pull request review. It's a lack of acknowledgement and it's a lack of process. They are connected. And of course, we have a lack of time. That, yeah, it's an issue that we have. Then we could start increasing the complexity of the project because of these issues. And who is QA leader here? Just you. Unfortunately, I won't explore more this idea, but sometimes could be intentional. Intentional why? Because, for example, some QAs could increase the complexity of the solution to say, okay, I can do this task because just I know how can I do this task. But I won't explore this theory. My theory, remember, it's a theory. Probably I'm not right. This is a theory that I want to share with you. My theory is that some QAs are using principles like Solid. Solid, it's just an example, but could be another framework, another solution, could be, for example, page objects, could be a lot of patterns that we have in industry. But I guess Solid is one of the most famous. Then I will explore this theory. And the QAs are using this, it's highlighted, an excuse to create excessive complex project. This is my theory. Let's speak about this theory. But I will just give a quick review about Solid because, okay, I will explore this idea, then I don't know if you heard about or if you know, I want just to give a quick explanation, just to review. Solid, it's a set of 5 principles created by AKA Uncle Bob, and Solid, it's good. Remember, I'm not criticizing Solid, I'm criticizing using wrong Solid. This is the problem. And this principle was created to increase, in this case, the scalable of the system, to organize better, and to increase the maintenance of the system. This is good. This is not the problem. I will just refresh these 5 principles. Then I tried to connect this with our area, with QA area. I will just focus on the example and on the benefit. For example, instead of having a general report class, we can split into report classes. For example, one single class for the report generation and other to report printer. The benefit, it will be to have an easy maintenance and reduce the impact of code changes. Okay, the open-close principle. The idea is, for example, okay, I need to test a new payment test type. Instead of add this test on the class that we already have. Okay, create a new class and split this to avoid the risk of breaking change. Okay, the list scope substitution principle. For example, instead of I have just a single class, for example, like iLogin page, we can create 3 that we can, for example, have some general methods, and for the web login page and for the mobile login page, we can have another, then we can swap between each others and we will increase the flexibility and reuse of the code. And we also have the interface of segregation principle. Instead of, for example, have a big generic class, we can split, for example, in tests from the registration, tests from the product. This is very used on the page objects approach. The idea is to improve system comprehension and maintenance. And finally, the D, it's the dependence of inversion principle. For example, it's very used on Selenium because instead of we have directly instantiation, for example, for the Chrome WebDriver, we can create an interface that we can choose on the execution. For example, okay, then I can swap between Chrome, Edge, and the other browsers. So, given this context, I will try to represent the problem of complexity. Have you ever worked with Cypress? Who from you? Do you agree? I will explain, of course. Do you agree this code, it's an easy code to understand and to use? No one? Okay, yeah. I will try to force this code to be harder to understand and harder to maintain, give you some context. But for example, this is a simple test. Imagine I just have a single API with, save this context on your head, okay? I just have a single API with maximum 4 endpoints. One of them is this is a get from users that I'm just checking if the status is 200, if we have an array on the body, and we are checking 3 parameters. Okay, this is easy. Let's assume this, okay? The problem about over-engineer always starts when someone say, and if something happens, have you heard about it? If, trying to predict the future, if we don't have any plans, we don't have any plans, it's just that single API, but only have someone to try to end if. And if you decided to increase the quantity of property, what I should recommend do? Add 2 lines. Add 2 lines, that's it. The end of presentation. But usually, or what happens if you don't adapt for your context? Normally, you can create a robust application just to avoid 2 lines, for example. I will force this scenario and try to explain to you. For example, and if, okay, now I will create a new class, a new user DTO class to save the parameters. I will create an API request because you said, and if I decided to have a post request after, okay, I will prepare, but I won't have, this is a problem, I won't have, okay, 2 classes, the 3rd class, and if I decided to validate better because I need to check, for example, why are you logging? And if you decided to validate name, email, and DTO. Okay, 3rd class. And finally, of course, we need to test this into a single class. Detail. I could create another test class just to save the user endpoint. That is correct, okay, but I will skip that. And so, now, instead of have 1 class, we have 4 classes to do the same task. But you can ask, Bruno, okay, but in the case that I will have this situation that I need, okay, this approach, it's correct. But what I'm saying that it's for simple situation, you need to use simple code or simple approach. This is what I'm trying to put on your head. As a result, instead of have a code simple, we have now a code harder and understand to maintain. Of course, this is just for classes. But and if you're starting to create more classes, and the problem is the forced solid. It's not the solid, okay? Forced solid example. Create a robust and unnecessary structure for simple tests. This is the problem. If we decided to test, just direct on Cypress, we'll solve our problem. We're going to test. We will have more time to drink some beer. And it was more simple. And this is the idea that I want to put you to reflect. And we have another more issues. For example, we could, using always this approach without any criteria, this is the problem, without any criteria, because I just decided that I want to over-engineering my code. We could have a misalignment with the proposal of tests, because instead of to be concerned with bugs, with quality, with other things, I will spend time giving maintenance to that code that I'm not taking any advantage. But remember, on that situation, and we are creating, this is my theory, it's a cognitive overload. I don't know if you have heard about that, but it's like, if I just needed to create a new test for that class, I will there, add 2 lines, okay, I will back to my work. But if I need to load on my head 1 class, 5 classes, 10 classes, end of the day, I will be with my brain tired. And this is a problem, because we are not 100% to do our things. And I need to search about what the specialist said. I was looking on this certification, and we have a sentence there on the course that they said the test code should be simple and easy to maintain. I will explain why and do an analogy. And the first, I guess it's not the first, but another reflection. Are we forgetting about this sentence when we are trying to apply these patterns? I won't give you an answer, but thinking about that. But remember, without any criteria, just applying because I need to apply. Or I want to apply, I want to show to my boss that I know solid, that I know the principles, then the code now it's hard to understand, and yeah. And I don't know if you have heard about this analogy. For example, a mechanic understands the technical details of the car. The driver only needs to know how to drive and stay the car. The QA that just focuses on the code may forgot to simulate the user role. Thinking about that. And some stories about complexity. During a PR review, okay, I was doing my test code, and usually I like to send my pull requests to the devs team. This is excellent, by the way, not for just, usually I was able to submit my PRs just to QA team, but I like to get the inputs from the dev team. Then a dev just requested me a singleton in a class that I would need to refactor all of my code. And the point is, in terms of the theory, it was a good suggestion. It was a really good suggestion. I had to refactor my code, okay, But in terms of advantage, I was taking anything. I just would refactor my code, but the tests will run on the same way. I won't get any advantage. And it's like, okay, I don't need to do it. Then I justify it with it. I justify, so this is too much complex. I don't have any advantage. Then because of that, I won't do it. But the history that inspired me to be here, it was this history. Believe on me. To do a simple get. It was just a get. Oh my God, I don't want it to be nothing special. I just wanted to do a test. It was 3 repositories, three, not just one, neither 2. 3 repositories to do a simple test. It was like a repository to save the details. It was a repository to save the logic. And it was a repository to do the tests. Back again, on the theory, that code was beautiful. It was beautiful. But in practical terms, it was at least a half of an hour just to create a test. Because, for example, if I need to create a get, I will need to, on the first repository, put the DTO, and after align with the logic, and after align with the tests, and get, and pull, and a lot of features that the result it was, it took a lot hours to do a simple test. And just another reflection. We are on the AI area. It's a reflection. I'm not saying that this is correct. But for example, if you decided, sometimes we are just trying to avoid the repetition of 2 lines because we don't like to repeat lines. But for example, if this is easier to maintain, why not? Ask this for yourself. Instead of create a robust solution just to avoid repeat 2 lines. Thinking about that. I'm not saying that, okay, let's repeat Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V in all code. I'm not saying this, but analyze the context of your project. And just to finalize, for example, some questions that some people ask me. For example, page objects. It's good or not? For example, if you are working with Selenium, I guess it's mandatory, for example. I cannot imagine. Of course, we have another approach, but for me, it's good. But for example, for Playwright and Cypress, in my opinion, it's not necessary. You are adding more complexity than use directly the framework. And including the frameworks, they don't suggest use page objects approach. But the point to reflect is depend of your project needs. If you are used to work with page objects, yeah, could be a good option. If you have, for example, junior QAs that are not used with the control of page objects, yeah, consider to use. This is the question. Always check the project, the necessity of your projects. And for example, Cucumber, I don't know if it's a polemic, but for example, we have positive points. Integrates very well with Selenium. It's really good for beginners, including the beginners on the projects that wanted to read and to understand the project. Many companies still request on the job. I'm checking the time. And we have some negative points that it's almost impossible to avoid the repetition of the code, because, for example, I want to click in a button, then I don't know even that I created already, or my colleague already created. It's hard to keep this control, and sometimes it's hard to maintain this project in large project. And my final thoughts. Simplify automation, it's essential. Remembering, the best practices are important, but think about it. They should not overcomplicate the code. Each project has its specific needs. Think about that. And automation is a computer science. In science, we don't have absolute truths. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bruno. Do you have any questions? Questions?
Reflections, maybe.
There is one, isn't it? Do you have question? No.
Sorry?
Oh.
I cannot listen. Why what?
Microphone.
Please, on the mic.
Sorry? That guy was fired.
Oh, okay.
The guy who created, because I joined it, then I got scared, but I was just a QA. I was not a QA leader, but after some time, the guy was fired. Not just because of it, but because it was a bad decision. Yeah. But we override that.
Thank you. There is another question. Do you have another approach better than Cucumber? Was that the question? Okay.
I guess Cucumber, it's approach. I guess it's like depending on the project. Sometimes could be better not to use the Cucumber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for vegetables or something like that? Okay, you can find Bruno in the speaker's corner. Please bring him a beer there because he needs one. And let's send him off the stage with round of applause, Bruno Figueiredo!